is there anything that could cause you to lower your confidence that reality is multidimensional?
Um,
You said your name was Nathan?
yeah,
Okay.
3 cameras rolling. That's cool. And using your old phones.
Yeah.
That's a good use for them.
Yeah, I really like
Apple optics have been good for a long time.
Yeah, I really like using the doing all the multicam editing. It's just really fun. Like
Sure.
most people that I've talked to who kind of do this kind of thing, it's
Uh-huh.
like their least favorite part.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of dig it.
The
Always
editing
liked
itself, you mean?
editing and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
just
that's kind of, that's the paint box kind of.
Right.
You get to
it's where the magic happens.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So we've talked before, right? A little bit. Not really.
I just briefly chatted with you, seeing what you're up to, and
Okay.
and yeah, both. I think I've seen you out here 2 or 3 times, and you've always had people, so it's cool. Good on you.
Awesome. It's a good problem to have, right?
It is. Yeah.
Well, I'll just kind of recap what I'm doing out here,
Right.
and then if you have any questions, whatever.
Sure.
But basically, I'm out here conducting interviews, asking people in my community to talk about something that is meaningful to them, something that they think is true, and my job is to ask questions from a neutral perspective,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can both explore how they arrived to the conclusion
Mm-hmm.
and what supports their confidence that it's true.
Interesting. The truth is a very interesting pivot point in any of these conversations,
Yeah.
because most of us arrive at our quote unquote truth by way of distilling opinions. So I think it's rare that, especially, it sounds like these days, that there's just such a tremendous amount of information coming at us 24/7 that not only does that lend itself to a short attention span in terms of vetting any of that information, but it also can be very polarizing and disabling to the point. Most people, again, very crass generalization. I think a lot of people that are still paying attention to mainstream or corporate media are doing so habitually. Not, it's always been there. There's always been that focal point as a news source, and I think it's interesting to, again, a present day and long-term cliche, follow the money, where anything that's motivating popular opinion is stemming from. So if you look at, the remainder of mainstream media, the, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, Fox, if you look at their funding sources, and the percentage of their funding sources, and merely their commercial breaks, if you brought to you by whoever, pick a corporation, it's very telling in terms of where it seems to be they are leaning from in terms of what they're proposing as quote unquote truth. So again, out of habit and out of that platform and out of what people have over decades now accustomed themselves to receiving as news, they kind of pick your poison in terms of whether it's political affiliation or what have you, that kind of varnishes them in one direction or another. They're going to almost blindly accept what they're being told. And again, they is a kind of a gross generalization. We're talking about society, because society is a we. And as much as there have been many attempts and continue to be at wedging us against one another in that realm, it's what remains of this as a democracy, and that's my own opinion, is hanging on by a thread in terms of our ability to gather together and have level-headed differences of opinion without demonizing one another to the point that you're the enemy now. And we've seen that particularly over the last 2.5 going on 3 years now, given COVID, and how polarizing that scheme of things was for so many and continues to be. Say what you will about the quote-unquote vaccine, jab, no vaccine, anti-vax, all of the different categories that have been kind of stirred up in this soup of what's become very openly antagonizing to our society. Again, there's that kind of silo of forming of opinion that's done anything but encourage debate and encourage, why do you believe that? Similar to what you're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
It's what is true for you, and how did you come by that? Well, and you can kind of, swing a cat, for lack of better terminology, in any direction, and you'll come up with something that is fodder for this separation. And it's interesting, not this earlier this summer, and I walk a lot around here, put in miles a day, and I came across up at the Capitol a gathering, and it was put together. It was a day of sharing that was put together out of non-denominational. I don't have notes in front of me. I can't remember who specifically the religious organization that put it together, but it was very very diverse in terms of who was populating that presentation. In terms of mindset, largely people of color that were both putting it on, and did a very I think a very good job of being an example of what that can look like in terms of opening a discourse and bringing it down to grassroots level, no matter where you are or what you're up to, how you can affect a positive change, a positive impact, or even something as seemingly insignificant as just smiling and engaging people in passing. That's like, again, over the last 2.5 to 3 years and lockdowns and masks and all that, people are, I think, largely, I think we're in a recovery position where that's concerned now to some degree, but people are wounded, I think psychically and socially by what has taken place.
How much of all that would you say is based on media?
Oh, percentage-wise, if I had to guess, 95% of it.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you look at, go ahead, you're following that
I
up.
was just going to ask to maybe try to guide this a little bit.
Sure.
We have a ton of information.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to parse with the way the media is set up now, you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And like we've come to a point where the media is such that it's come to it's more divisive and it's harmful. And some examples of that is like what happened with the media with COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's kind of the nutshell.
And 95% of, like, what's the 95%?
that they've been instrumental in making this a divisive issue.
COVID specifically,
No, not limited to. I
or
mean,
politics?
polit certainly.
Okay.
But I think if you look at how COVID was politicized, then that was just another point of leverage to increase that side taking
Okay.
position. You know, it's like, now, giving a good example, and you can find this on YouTube, and it's also a good case in point of um, an example of, you know, what censorship has become just a hot button issue across the board, not only in this country but, you know, worldwide.
Censorship, free speech.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, free speech specifically, whereby, you know, there were countless so-called peddlers of misinformation that were taken down, you know, had strikes against them, or were removed, or they, you know, in many cases, especially where it came to medical professionals, they were, you know, ridden out on a freaking rail, and which, as we see the screw turn, you know, it's coming into present time reality that a lot of these people had pretty good estimation of what was going on, and, you know, some are being vindicated, but not everyone. And there's still, like in California, I don't know if it passed, there was legislation up Friday that they were going to, you know, it was going to be basically mandated that doctors toe the line as far as whatever the, you know, hand-me-down was from the WHO and, you know, NIH and so on. So basically, you know, in no uncertain terms, telling doctors, professionals that, you know, studied for years, and, you know, in the depths of science and in the depths of debating whatever the differences of opinion were within that science, they spent, you know, most of their lives getting to the place where they could use what they'd learned, coupled with their intuition, to figure out what the heck was going on with you, you know, regardless of COVID or whatever. But okay, so there was that impact in terms of early on censorship, and the kind of the not, you know, fairly transparent connection between um, uh, the powers that be governmentally and Silicon Valley, and how they were controlling the narrative. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, you hear um, no other than Rachel Maddow, MSNBC, proclaiming that you know, once you get this new vaccine, that's it. We stop the spread. Almost verbatim her words. You get the shot, you won't get it again. You won't be able to transmit it. We can do this. And it was like, just, you know, like, matter of fact, this is what we need to do. You know, in the face of that, you know, that's pretty just right in your face. And, like, at that time, you know, post lockdown or coming off of that, people were just rabid for some solution to it, you know, and at least seeing what you're being, again, daily given as far as the number count of dead and from, with COVID, what have you. But to this day, even though that's long since been totally overridden as anything close to the truth, that video is still up. So why would that be, for instance, if there wasn't somebody that had a vested interest in still portraying that version of the truth that way?
Okay. So your main idea here is the media, from
It's hypnosis.
from either side,
Yeah.
or from multiple sides,
Yeah.
is divisive,
I mean,
and that's causing harm.
It's divisive, but it also, it's a matter of how well they have ferreted out how to be magnetic and convincing in terms of how they're portraying the version of reality that they're presenting.
Okay, so we could say the media is
The media is the virus.
The media,
in a way. That's a cliche, and it's off a T-shirt somebody
the
put out
media
too.
is the
But
virus. Okay.
but if okay, so again, back to individual responsibility here. If you know, I don't know if you have encountered friends, family members, what have you, in the course of the last few years, that have just taken whatever that position was, good, bad, or indifferent, but are so seemingly invested in it that there's no willingness to have a discussion outside of that lockstep belief. And that to me is a very it occurs to me that's a very dangerous place to see our the fabric of our society sitting, that people can be so convinced what they're told as being true.
And
There's
not
very little critical thought involved in approaching that.
the lack of critical thinking um, makes a situation where the media can succeed at being divisive.
Absolutely. And if you look at our educational system, where it used to be taught in school, critical thinking, alongside government, alongside, kind of the nuts and bolts of what kind of makes up a steadfast democracy. Those things have been practically surgically removed over time. So if we're not, helping people understand the basis of a good, honest debate, and we're not helping people understand, there's room to question, quote unquote, authority, and if we're not exercising that, and what's left of, you notice in mainstream media now, the elements of show business have really kind of overtaken those formats, in that they're uh, they're called shows now. It's not like whatever it was 40 years ago, and Walter Cronkite was, the figurehead of true.
There's like entertainment. There's like entertainment motivations.
Yeah, yeah, and just pot stirring. It's like, if there isn't a problem, we'll figure one out so we can then claim victory over fixing it. Similar to the government and the approach that we take in particularly global politics.
What percentage of society's problems is because of the media, do you think?
Well, I don't see that then you start skirting victimhood, and there's no personal power in that either. If you're just going to point the finger and go, the media is the problem, we need to clean that up. Now somebody else go do that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to.
That's not a position of power. It's more like, okay, so what happened to the Fourth Estate? What happened to investigative reporting? What happened to, used to be, that was their pivotal position within the structure of government, was to be outspoken in the face of anything that they thought was at all sideways for whatever reason, didn't matter. They weren't looking to be the next person that got, 7 figures and was sitting in the armchair at 6 o'clock every night. They were honestly motivated by, let's get to the truth, that, and time again they did, and
the
really,
truth seemed to mean more than, it seemed to be more important than the other motivations that we see going on.
yeah, I mean, and at a different time, completely. I mean, as far as that as an example, but I think again, it's the crux of, we largely, back to the victimization of society. We've been taught that. We've been taught to blame and not take responsibility.
Okay.
Whether that's on an individual basis or collectively, whether that's your neighborhood, the city you live in, however you are integrated into wherever you are, there's personal responsibility to be taken in terms of how you are experiencing your life within that.
What's the appropriate amount of blame we should give the media?
I don't think it's blame. I think it's more a matter of unrelenting fact finding, in terms of getting to the bottom of the disparities between what's being presented and the reality of the matter. That, and again, that's back to personal responsibility. And there are groups out there that are, Freedom of Information Act, that kind of thing, going after this stuff. But they also not given the time of day via the mainstream. You go looking for that information and you can find it. But again, there's been so much stirred up in terms of, misinformation, disinformation, the basically the heretical approach to, life on planet Earth right now. That it's not taken seriously by anybody that could give that momentum.
Okay, so you're not really. It doesn't sound like you're putting very much blame on the media. You're kind of saying that it's more of an us problem, our lack of critical thinking skills, our inability or unwillingness to really look for truth, whatever that is.
To not question it at all is to me a total disservice to yourself and to each other.
Okay.
And to again not have the wherewithal to have to agree to disagree, but in the process of honest, sincere debate is where you discover the holes in your own thinking, and you may learn something. But if people are unwilling to have that, or they're put off by it, or that it's like hands go up, it's just too much, and there's enough anxiety to be fed on around that people are unwilling to go there for the most part.
Is there any conclusion you hold that you're not open to?
Oh, I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are many. I mean, I don't pretend to have the answers to this stuff, but I think it's important that we talk about it.
Can you think of one? A belief or a conclusion that you hold that you're not open to being wrong about?
That's a very good question. I would hope that I might go down fighting, but I would hope that there would be, and that there I would hope that I have an open enough mind to entertain whatever it is they may be in opposition to what I might be bringing to the table.
Okay. You're not able to think of anything right off the bat.
Can you rephrase the question?
Yeah. Can you think of a conclusion that you hold that you're not open to being wrong about?
Well, you're getting into more multifaceted or more layers of how I perceive reality.
Yeah.
And to that end, everything we've been talking about so far has pertained to what we commonly know, or what we agree to be third-dimensional reality. And if you stop there, then that limits the arena in which you are able to discern what's the illusion and what's the reality of any of this stuff. Mm-hmm. So beyond what we see on a day-to-day basis, that's a totally different track. And I personally believe, and I'd find it hard to, if I'm trying to find something that I would relinquish, I'd find it hard to relinquish that as a belief, that we live in a multidimensional universe, and that there is so much more than what is revealed to us in 3D reality.
Okay. So
it's kind of like strong. Disprove your belief or your disbelief in quote unquote God or supreme being or intelligent life, or that kind of thing. It's like, mm-hmm. How do you do that?
Yeah. So a conclusion that you hold that you're pretty firm about
is that we live in a multidimensional reality.
Okay.
Yeah. Multiple realities that function concurrently, and that we sometimes dip in and out of the awareness of.
There's multiple realities? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Uh, multiple realities. What is your definition of reality?
Well, again, it depends on the dimension you're talking about. Because if we're talking about those that are revealed by only by our six senses, for instance, five senses plus intuition, um, again, it puts a limit on what you're able to discern. But depending on pick a pick a vehicle for getting in touch with anything beyond 3D, whether that be meditation or yoga or plant medicine or whatever the case may be. In investigating those realms via those vehicles, um, I think very quickly reveals that there's much more going on than meets the eye.
There's more to the sensual experience that we have.
Oh, there's certainly more to the sensual experience we have, but there's much more going on that relates to the means by which we perceive other realities. That begins with how our gray matter interprets things and how we may alter that via, like I say, via our breath, via meditation, via plant medicine, what have you. But
What was
that's
reality again?
that was good. I like that.
I it's important for me to understand the definitions that you're using for
Reality,
terms.
yeah. So I think it extends to how you come by the way you interpret life.
Reality is dependent on people.
Oh, certainly, in that we are all vehicles for awareness and insight, and
Okay. Reality requires awareness.
yeah, it's like the whole thing of the hey, if a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there to hear it, does it make a sound?
Reality requires awareness, and does it require human awareness?
Well, I don't know that I can definitively answer that. In that, I on the one hand, yes, in terms of we're like for instance, we're talking about it right now, so we are bringing awareness to this topic, and we're doing so as human beings. However, who's to say that whether or not we may be able to perceive them right now, there may be countless life forms hanging around completely oblivious to what we're doing, but having a similar exchange.
Did reality exist before humans were here?
Again, depends on the dimensionality you're talking about.
In the
On
in the
this
dimension.
on this planet, before the evolution of the human species, did reality exist? Well, it likely existed for plant life and the origins of multiple millions of species other than human beings. That you look at the Crowleyan photography and the life of plants, for instance. There is awareness there. There's a life form there. There's something that responds to life around it.
Does reality require a life form?
No,
Okay. So reality does not require a life form.
again, back to what dimension you're dealing with,
I guess
because there.
I mean in the dimension that we share.
Well, yeah, I think again, it's without feedback. What is there? And we feed back off of each other. We feed back off of, you know, the grass growing under our feet. So yeah, there.
On a scale from 0 to 100, how confident are you that reality has multiple dimensions?
100.
100? Okay. Is there anything that would cause you to increase your confidence, even though you're at 100? Could you be more confident in that? Is there something that you could learn?
Oh,
that could cause
always,
you to?
always more to learn.
What's something that
Always.
you could learn that would cause you to be more confident in that reality includes multiple dimensions?
Well, it's like you can read, you know, multiple instances of other people having these experiences. But reading about it is totally different than having that experience.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I mean, I've not had a um, close to it, but not truly an out of body experience. But you can read countless of those
Mm.
events.
So if you had an out of body experience, that would potentially cause you to be more confident in the multidimensionality of
Yeah,
reality.
yeah. I think
Okay.
it would be a validation of those ideas being, you know, real. You know, in my own experience. You
Could
know,
somebody have a out of body experience and reality not be multidimensional?
you'd have to ask them. I don't know. I, I think it implies that. I
Okay.
think it implies other dimensionality.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything that could cause you to lower your confidence that reality is multidimensional?
Um, I don't, at this point, I don't think so, really.
Nothing could bring you down to 99.
um, no, not really. I have had too many personal experiences otherwise.
Is personal experience your main reason for believing that reality is multidimensional?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because otherwise I think it's again, it's back to conjecture and the notion that, well, you know, so and so did, and you know, they wrote a book about it, you know, whatever.
Okay. If and I'm not saying this is the case, but if reality was not multidimensional, do we have a way to tell?
Good question. Um, well, what are dreams about? You know, nobody really knows for sure what, you know, there's a lot, there's a lot of feedback about dream life and the idea that, you know, uh, it's a way that our subconscious basically vents stress, you know, and largely the depictions within a dream are, you know, you can read into them as much meaning as you want, but they're generally meaningless. Just the way that we blow off steam in our sleep when our body finally completely relaxes, which is hard for a lot of people. But
Hmm.
um, um, yeah, I think I think dreams are in a way an aspect of another dimension.
That's that's something that supports the idea that reality is multidimensional, right?
I think
Dreams?
so. Yeah,
Okay.
even in a minute fashion, but yeah.
So the question is, how could you tell if you were mistaken about your belief that reality is multidimensional?
Um, I don't know. I think you're starting to lean into the question of death and afterlife and that type of thing.
Hmm.
You know, and if there truly weren't such a thing, how are you going to know? I mean,
Yeah.
how are you going to bring back that information? Unless it's you know, a near-death experience, and you come back and you go, "Wow, this happened, and I met so and so," you know, all that
Right.
stuff. You know,
How confident should we be in beliefs that we have no way to tell if we're wrong about?
I think that's where faith enters the picture.
Faith?
Yeah, and
Is faith
that's a to me that's a personal realm in terms of what sustains you on a daily basis, that lives both within and in outer life
are
that you
you
see.
equating faith with personal experience?
Yeah, I think faith yields personal experience.
Why is faith or personal experience a good reason to be 100% confident in something that you're not able to tell if you're wrong about?
That then resides in the realm of emotion,
Emotion?
and yeah, because I think you start you're kind of on the edge of where intuition comes into play, and how intuition functions through one's intuition, one's emotion, their emotional body, and how you feel that, how you sense that, and how in trusting it, in having faith in your own intuition, where does that come from? But in trusting it, you're reinforcing your trust in it
Okay.
every time you rely on it. Every time you rely on it and it proves accurate, it reinforces it. It's not going to be accurate 100% of the time, but that's part of the refinement process. It's just trial and error, like anything else in the process of learning, anything.
Okay. So faith is putting your trust in your intuition?
I think in part, anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could somebody use emotions or faith or personal experience to support a false conclusion?
Sure. Um, but see, in that context, now you're back to talking about three-dimensional reality and organized religion. Prime example of that, using faith to instruct a belief.
So you're 100% confident in something that you can't tell if you're wrong, and that you're using reasons that people use to arrive to false conclusions.
Put that a different way, if you will.
Yeah, and if I'm incorrect about something,
No,
just let me know.
Yeah.
You're 100% confident.
But see, that's an individual basis.
Yeah, you're personally 100% confident that reality is multidimensional.
Mm-hmm.
You have no way to tell if you're mistaken about that, right?
Not really. I mean, the proof, the only real proof of that would be if you were able to make that journey into another dimension alongside someone else or a group of people, and everybody corroborated the same experience.
Mm.
And the likelihood of that would seem to me to be slim to none.
So if a group of people
Then
all had the same experience and they're all corroborating it, that would be a reason to be 100% confident in what they're saying?
yeah, or go the other way in disproving it. So it's like,
Okay.
no, that was just an illusion. That's not another dimension. That was just, that was another aspect of, a slice of dream world or something.
How do you tell the difference between illusions and another dimension of reality?
That gets to me. That's on a personal level. That's where emotion plays such a strong part in how we chart our own course. It's like you back to that gut feeling.
Yeah.
You know when something is right. You know when something is wrong.
Have you ever been mistaken using a gut feeling?
Oh, hell yeah.
In emotions?
Often. Yeah. But that, again, like I said before, it's like that's how that process gets refined. And in that process, being willing to be wrong is how you come to trust what you know to be right. And the further along you go in that trust of your own intuition, the more refined it becomes and the more trustworthy it is, and the more likely you're going to use it as a guiding light.
Okay. So this conclusion that you've made, that's been refined over time.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not, definitely not overnight. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been refined. Are you open to being wrong about it?
Sure.
Okay. But there's nothing that
so far I have not. I've seen nothing to convince me otherwise, and I've not experienced anything to convince me otherwise.
Can use your imagination to think of something that would cause you to lower your confidence?
But you'd almost have to have some kind of a severe illness or brain injury or something that completely altered your perception so that you've lost track of whatever that cumulative sense of your true north was, in order to, because it's like once you get in touch with that, there's no going backwards. It's like you either trust that or you don't. But once you've had a direct experience of it, you can't just go, yeah, I don't think so. Let me go back to whatever it was before that. Can't, put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Do you have time for a couple more questions?
Just a couple more. I got to finish mine.
Okay, cool. If you were mistaken about reality being multidimensional, would you want to know?
That's a good question too. I like that. Well, not only would I want to know, but I would want to know, okay, if that's the case, then what is the alternative?
Yeah.
Because these experiences that I've had, you're gonna have to come up with a pretty convincing tale to suggest otherwise.
Well, the alternative to a multidimensional reality is that there's one dimension.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, see, again, it gets back into that question of afterlife, or at least the notion that there's a separation between consciousness and the physical body, and that consciousness is infinite and without end, and that, yeah, you may drop the body, but the consciousness that you've accumulated, whatever wisdom from through this life experience, that does not. That just is ongoing and continually evolving and growing.
Okay. I want to talk to you again, possibly about consciousness. But I guess my last question about this is, if you found out somehow that reality was not multidimensional, how would your behavior change?
I don't know that my behavior would change all that much. I'll go back to where we started. It's like I think we bear individual responsibility to be true to ourselves and to be true to our fellow human beings, and have, I kind of skirted over the part of the conversation where I was relaying that church group from Tacoma, but how their whole thing was, it's like grassroots. It's up to us to look after each other. We've got to get out of this mindset that whether it's the government or whatever is coming to save us, is that we've gotten so dependent on the notion of something outside of us is going to take care of us. And that may have been more readily, honestly reinforced 50, 60 years ago, or after the Great War. But we've lost track of, and again, back, whether it's mainstream media or it's just our phone addictions, we've gotten so accustomed to being distant from each other and not having eye to eye, not having face to face, not seeing, you're not only, on a two-dimensional screen, your response, your reaction, your body language, your all of your presence with each other. Those are huge things to have removed from this huge swath of life on this planet, that I think is largely, it's happened so relatively rapidly. We're still taking stock of the ramifications of it, and we will be for quite some time. But back to, we are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. And until we really come to terms with that and act on that, most importantly, that's the sea change that's available even at this point in time, where there's saber rattling about nuclear warfare and shit. It's like, come on, we're on this planet together, and like it or not, we better, if we can't see eye to eye, at least we have to learn how to tolerate one another and provide the best quality of life for each other that we possibly can.
You're optimistic, sounds
Oh,
like.
absolutely I am. Absolutely.
Is that a gut feeling?
Yeah, it is, as a matter of fact. That's good, David. I like that. I like that.
I really appreciate you talking to me.
I appreciate your taking the time, and I
Absolutely.
love that you're doing what you're doing. This is
Thanks.
another good case in point. This is how this kind of outreach and this kind of, first of all, you got to give a damn. You got to give a damn, and then you've got to decide everybody can do something. I don't care who you are, what you're. Ran into a guy that was apparently living on the street. He had his phone out, and he wanted to take a picture of the Capitol to send his son. Couldn't figure it out. I said, well, you can help. So help him take this picture, and help him send the picture via text. And it's like made his freaking day. And it was like, that's a really simple example. And you see that kind of thing more and more. It's got to have some momentum to it. And that doesn't mean that we need one more governmental organization to form to give momentum to that. We can do that. We can maintain that momentum on a daily basis. Donations, food bank, have a table out in your neighborhood with food on it extra, whatever it is. The idea that we still have a hunger problem in this country is just mind-boggling to me. We can send $80 billion to Ukraine. We can't feed, clothe, or house our own population. It's a shame, and it shouldn't be.
Seems like, with your example of the guy with the phone, if we all do something, it doesn't take very much.
Doesn't take a bit. You instantly feel that come back to you. Instantly. You feel that's love. That's that exchange. That's that heart to heart. It's like, you may have been sleeping in your clothes for the last week. I don't give a fuck. Excuse me, YouTube.
It's all good. It's YouTube.
That it truly is. It's become another cliche, but it is the little things. Those little things are cumulative, and those cumulative things add up, and before you know it, you've got momentum, and you've got a means to an end, and you can make a difference.
Cool. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I sincerely hope you keep doing what you're doing. You're a human being that's grounded in taking action on their passion. We need more of that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hope I didn't keep you too long.
No, not at all. My pleasure.
Definitely want to talk to you again if you're up for it, if you see me around.
Oh yeah, I'll come say hi. Sure.
Yeah, have a seat, and we'll explore something else.
Right.
Did you get information about my channel?
No, give me you got a card or something?
This, if you scan
perfect, gotcha.
It'll take you right to my channel, and you'll see. It's interesting what you were saying about media. I've got a one that came up in my mind. Another interview that I had was about how social media affects our human connections.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be interested in that one.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, for sure.
Sound Epistemology?
That's it. Yeah.
Excellent. I like the title.
Sound, like the Puget Sound.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Epistemology is how we come to know things.
Absolutely. I get it.
So cool. I really appreciate your kind words, and yeah, I really appreciate you exploring this with me.
Indeed.
Today.
Me too.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You do as well, David.
Take care.
Pleasure to meet you, brother.
It's really coming.